You may have heard that all saturated fat is bad for your health. Here's why that's wrong. Welcome to 9 Minutes to Better Health, a podcast series that breaks down real science for you to use in your daily life. G'day, I'm Dr. Nick Fuller. I'm an obesity expert from the University of Sydney and RPA Hospital. In my 15 years in the field, I've seen, heard, and helped people from every demographic. And I've seen, heard, and observed every fad diet and weight loss diet that exists. And here's the thing, they all work short term, but then the weight comes back. Each podcast, I will tackle the latest research on interesting health and wellness subjects. I'll chat about topics like, is it best to skip breakfast if you're trying to lose weight? Is coffee good for your health? What weight loss pills work best? And what should you eat and how much should you eat during pregnancy, which is a topic we tackled last week, so make sure to go back and listen. But back to today's chat on dietary fats. What are the different types of fat and which ones are best for our health? Fat is a calorie-packed nutrient that is needed to survive. It gives your body energy, protects your organs, supports cell growth, keeps cholesterol and blood pressure under control, and helps your body absorb vitamins. Fats are an important part of a healthy diet, but some are better for you than others. Let's jump into the literature to find out more. There are 4 major types of dietary fat in food: trans fat, saturated fat, monounsaturated fat, and polyunsaturated fat. The worst kind of fat is that known as trans fat. Studies show that just 2% of your daily calories coming from trans fats will increase your risk of heart attack by 23%. Although they are naturally found in very small amounts in beef and dairy, like cheese and butter, it's the artificial trans fats that are of great concern. Manufacturers create trans fats when hydrogen is added to vegetable oil, a process that is used to turn healthy oils into solids to prevent them going off. You'll find this type of fat in some commercially produced cakes, biscuits and pastries. Although Australia doesn't have a high consumption of trans fats compared to other places in the world, some countries have banned them, such as the US, meaning you're likely to consume less. However, you may still find them in a diet rich in commercial baked goods and frozen food, wherever you may live, as well as fried and fast food, because the high temperatures used in deep frying can increase the trans fat content of the oils used. If you see that the product contains partially hydrogenated fat or partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, then definitely stay away from it because that's indicative of the presence of trans fats. Second on the list is saturated fats. These fats are solid at room temperature. Think cooled bacon grease. Other common sources of saturated fat include the fat you find on meat, full-fat dairy products, baked goods, chocolate and takeaway. It's also high in some oils like coconut oil. But is this type of fat bad for you? I dug up quite a few papers on the link between saturated fat and heart disease, which you'll find in the show notes. Foods containing saturated fat can drive up your bad cholesterol level, which then blocks blood flow to your heart, causing a heart attack. Anything that is processed or fast food will be high in saturated fat, and these foods will worsen your health. When you look at the research, both the randomized controlled trials and the observational studies, the best outcomes and strongest evidence for reducing risk of heart disease were found when saturated fat in the diet was replaced with polyunsaturated fats, which is another type of fat I'll tackle shortly, or when there was an increase in the ratio of polyunsaturated to saturated fat consumed. An example would be swapping butter for olive oil or avocado as your spread of choice. The studies also show that including more high-fibre, whole-grain carbohydrates and polyunsaturated fats, in place of white refined carbohydrates and saturated fats, reduce the risk of heart disease. However, the research also highlights that not all foods containing saturated fat are bad for our health. What I'm saying is not all saturated fatty acids are equal, and the type of saturated fat found in some foods like dairy, particularly milk and yogurt, do not have a negative effect on our health, and they're not foods you should be eliminating from your diet. I did a whole podcast on dairy in episode 8, so make sure to go back and have a listen. Third on the list are the monounsaturated fats. When you dip your bread in olive oil at your favourite Italian, you're getting mostly monounsaturated fat. Much like polyunsaturated fats, they differ from saturated fats in that they're liquid at room temperature, not solid. Good sources of monounsaturated fats include olive and canola oil, avocado and nuts. The discovery that monounsaturated fats were healthy came from the 7 countries study during the 1960s. It revealed that people living in the Mediterranean region enjoyed a low rate of heart disease despite a very high-fat diet, and the main fat in their diet was olive oil. The last type of fat is the polyunsaturated fats. Most oils are high in polyunsaturated fats. These types of fats are essential, meaning your body can't make them, so you need to get them from food. And there's two main types, the omega-3s and the omega-6s. The best source of omega-3 is fish. It's one of the best anti-inflammatory sources of food you can eat. You can also get omega-3s from plant sources such as nuts and seeds. But this conversion process of the plant source to its usable form is not an efficient process in the body, and you need to eat a lot of them to get your quota. And when it comes to omega-6s, it's not difficult getting them in, as most oils are a rich source of this type of fat, including oils like vegetable, safflower, sunflower, soybean, walnut and corn oil. The research shows that both mono and polyunsaturated fats are good for us. However, the modern-day Western diet has meant we're getting too many of the omega-6s, particularly from oils and commercially produced foods such as bakery goods, frozen foods and fast food. Most of us are eating far more omega-6s than the omega-3 fats, and on average about 10 times more. Excess consumption of omega-6s can trigger the body to produce inflammatory chemicals. The research doesn't show they're especially bad for our health, and I'm not saying you should be avoiding them, but they also shouldn't dominate your intake, of which they currently do. So a simple way of dealing with this is adding in some extra omega-3s by eating more fish, nuts and seeds, and also switching the type of oil you use to one that's high in monounsaturated fat, such as extra virgin or cold-pressed olive and canola oil, to improve your ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 in the diet. Reducing your consumption of takeaway and fast food to once per week is also crucial. My advice. Number 1, fat is important for many body processes, and you need to include a source of fat with every meal to ensure its balance. Great sources of fat include avocado, olive oil, fish, nuts and seeds. These are some of nature's best treats. Number 2, getting enough omega-3s by including a couple of servings of fish in your diet each week is important. And if you don't eat fish, you may benefit from a fish oil supplement, but you need to be taking 3,000 milligrams per day, usually 3 to 6 tablets per day depending on the strength you buy. Number 3, use cold-pressed, extra virgin or canola oil as your oils of choice. The rest can stay on the shelf. These oils are perfectly fine for frying at home too. And lastly, avoid foods high in unhealthy fats like processed meats, butter and cream, crisps and chips, pies and pastries, fast food, and other commercially produced foods like biscuits, donuts, muffins, cake, chocolate and ice cream. Food from this category should not be consumed more than once per week. I'm not saying cut them out, but we do need to reduce our volume. The take-home message. Fats are an important part of a healthy diet, but some are better for you than others. Trans fats are bad for our health, as are a lot of saturated fats. Mono and polyunsaturated fats should make up most of your fat intake. Focus on reducing your consumption of processed and fast food to once per week, and include more foods rich in omega-3 like fish. For more help with your diet, make sure to check out the show notes. That's all for today, so please give us a like and share with others if you're enjoying the content, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast to stay updated. The information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not substitute professional medical advice or consultations with healthcare professionals.